present, and all of that. So we have been working on Open Dreams podcast. Christina and I have been working on Open Dreams podcast for about a year now. We have been working very hard, trying to put things together. We've recorded a few episodes. We already have the episodes available on Spotify. We have them on RSS. We have them on Podvine. We have them on Open Dreams website as well. So you can even listen to them on those platforms. And today we are quite excited to have Sir Blaise joining us. Sir Blaise is one of the co-founders of Open Dreams, one of the pillars on which Open Dreams stands. He has an MBA from Harvard Business School, and his qualifications and his aptitude is one to welcome you. So we're quite excited to have you here, Sir Blaise. We've taken time out of a very busy schedule to join us into this session, and it's absolutely amazing to have you. So without wasting much time, and I would like to introduce you for you. I think it would be amazing if you do that yourself, since you can be more specific with that. So Blaise, for our listeners who don't know you, please tell us about yourself and who exactly you are.
Great. Thank you very much, Thaddeus. I think you and Joy have done a great job trying to bring all this group together and create a sort of a community around Open Dreams Scholars. I think a community like this is good for knowledge sharing, for exchanging ideas, for discussing things that are important to you guys. So that's awesome. So I'm very happy that you guys do this. I'm one of the co-founders of Open Dreams, like you guys know. It's, I think, almost getting up to our 10th anniversary when we started Open Dreams. And before I even go into how it started, basically my background is I was a student like many of you guys are today. Sometime many years ago, I was studying somewhere in the US, and I thought about my own path to where I was in the US. And I thought, I didn't come from money, I didn't come from privilege, but I sort of worked hard to get to where I was. And I know there are so many other students at this moment in different parts of the world trying to do the same thing. So why not start a program to help them do the same things I did so they can have access to opportunities as well, and so on and so forth. So that was the original inspiration for Open Dreams. And at some point I thought to myself, maybe wait and start something to help young people when you become a wealthy man. And then the idea dawned to me, you may never be wealthy. If you're never wealthy, are you not going to help people? Or don't even wait. You start now. You don't need money to start. And luckily, I'd already met this amazing, fantastic person, Christina, while I was studying in London at the London School of Economics. And she's one of the most beautiful in terms of like the heart. She has a beautiful heart people I've ever met. And she just wanted to be involved. So that's how we got together. And then, as you guys know, Hans joined us later. And then the idea for Open Dreams came together. The idea was really simple for me. When I got there to study in the US, to study in Europe, wherever I went, I saw people from other parts of the world, hardworking, smart young people, studying on scholarships. And I would see Indians, I would see Rwandans, I would see Kenyans, I would see Nigerians, I would see people from Hong Kong, people from Bangladesh. And I look around and then there are no Cameroonians. And I thought, why? When we have so many smart people. And it dawned on me that we just don't have access to the information. We need to find a way to provide young people access to information that will enable them to be able to get these opportunities as well. So I think that's how the whole idea came together. And then here we are today.
Amazing, amazing there. So while I was talking to Christina earlier, she mentioned that you met, she met you when she was studying at London School of Economics, and you're doing a year, a semester abroad there. And when you met her, she wanted to volunteer in Africa, and she was talking about her desire to volunteer somewhere in Africa. And you said, come to Cameroon. You see, we have lots of issues, and there's no one to help us. And so that was really where Open Dreams started. But apart from that, that wants to enable other people, other Cameroonians from where you eventually, of course, gain access to some of the wonderful study opportunities that you did have access to, and the opportunity that you saw so many other students from different other countries get access to. Was this something like within you? Was there something intrinsic, that maybe tied to your identity, who you are, that made you really want to push forward, promulgate the cause of dreams?
Okay. So yeah, absolutely. Even before meeting Christina, I think I was always worried about the fact that I was the only Cameroonian out there in many places, right? You go to Washington, only where I went to my undergrad, you're the only Cameroonian. You go to Washington, you're the only Cameroonian. You go to London School of Economics to study, you're the only Cameroonian. You go to One Young World, at the time this was in Zurich, and you're the only Cameroonian. And you're like, look, I want to see other people as well from Cameroon. I don't want to be the only Cameroonian in these places. I want to see young people. Because when I left Cameroon, when I was in high school, we used to compete. I used to compete with my friends. Someone will be first in class, someone will be second. You guys compete. And you know that you're competing with all these smart and brilliant people. And then when you go out there into the world to study, you ask yourself, where all the smart and brilliant people was competing with? They are not here, they're missing. They're not missing because they're not smart. They're missing because they don't have access to the opportunities. They don't have access to the same avenues that you have. And then you realize that. Why don't they have access? Because there's a gap in information. Because we grew up in a place where we didn't have access to internet. Back then in 2007, when we graduated from college, we didn't have computers, no internet, and so on and so forth. So everyone just thought what I could do to improve my lot in life was to go to QS, was to go to Polytech, and then maybe you could go to UB or you go to the ENS. That was like literally the realm of possibilities for many young people that were graduated in my class that year at GBHS Bamenda. And when I was out there, I thought all these young people, they could be the ones surrounding me here. They could be the ones with me in Zurich. They could be the ones with me in London. They could be the ones with me in the US studying. So I thought, what's the missing piece? The missing piece was they just didn't have access to information. So there was that desire for me to go out there and do and change this. So when I got to the US, my first year, I heard there was a convention. Was it in Dallas? Somewhere in Atlanta or something, yeah, something like that. No, not in Dallas, in Texas. Not Atlanta, in Texas. And in Texas, it was called CAMSA USA, Cameroon Students Association in the US. And I was interested to go to this event because I wanted to go there and find out from others that had been studying in the US about what they were doing to help and enable other Cameroonians to get access to opportunities. And to my dismay, to my consternation, when I got there, I found out that it was a place where people go to party, to rent cars, to compete with each other. It was nothing like the sort of thing I thought it would be. It was just a place where people go to socialize and show up to each other. And these guys were not even serious scholars. So I was very disappointed by that. And I came back. So that was my first attempt to want to bring together some sort of an initiative to help young people back at home. So I was very disappointed. I never went to that again. And I began to look beyond the Cameroonian community for people who were really passionate about trying to bring about change. So there was always that desire to help. So when I met Christina at the School of Economics, and she was studying, I think she was doing development studies, with a focus on, I think, Africa. She had some experiences in South Africa. It was some sort of a perfect match. Because the ideas came together, and we were very excited about helping to provide access to the people on the continent, to students on the continent. So yeah, so to answer your question, there was always that desire, and not only the desire to help students from Cameroon to get access to opportunities, but I think for every one of you, right, wherever you are today, there is someone that looks up to you. Whatever you're doing right now, there is someone that looks up to you as an inspiration, and it is your responsibility to reach back out and make sure that that person that looks up to you as an inspiration, you provide a door for them. Whether you're studying in India or you're studying in the US or you're studying at ALA, you guys study all across the world today, there are people that look up to you, and it is your responsibility to make sure that you increase or provide more access to those people that look up to you, so it's easier for them to become what you are. I think my goal, my philosophy and principle in life is always mentor people,
right.
So that they can supersede you. Always ensure that people can become better. because when you enable people around you, when you help people to get better opportunities, better access, etc., you grow a richer community in which to also grow yourself and develop yourself.
That's absolutely true, Sir Blaise. And one thing that I actually mentioned there that I do really agree with is that is the issue of access. Access is actually very important, and somebody cannot explore the full extent of their potentials or develop their potentials to the full place if they do not have access to the opportunities that are going to enable them to explore those potentials. Many times, there are many cases where people have died with their potentials, have their potentials have gone to waste because they do not have access to be able to develop that potential, that human capital development, and the opportunities were not there for them to actually get to that point. So very noble cause that you're actually promulgating, and we're quite excited to be part of this work, part of this network, part of this organization, part of this whole system. And unfortunately, one thing that is rather a criticism to the work that you're doing at Open Dreams sometimes is people will mention that enabling high achieving students gain access to scholarship opportunities and leave the country is some sort of brain drain, right? Many students have gotten scholarships to Open Dreams, and because of that, some people say this is form of brain drain, taking away the potential and talent and those who actually have some capacity from the country. So how do you actually react? How do you react to this?
I think that's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. Because it's something I also thought about. It's a very valid criticism that anyone that sees a program like Open Dreams should level at me or at anyone that's a member of Open Dreams. Well, it's all good and fine to help individuals get education. However, you are actually contributing to a problem, an acute problem, which is that the best and brightest, and it is actually true that you are the best and brightest in Cameroon, part of everyone at Open Dreams, because the selection criteria are such that we pick people that have worked hardest, people that are top in their classes, people that are demonstrated leadership, people that are exposed. So you really are the cream of the crop. And then we enable you to go and study abroad. So that is a very, you are the intellectual elite. That is a very valid criticism. Now, to those critics, here's what I say. It's true, it's valid, it's a valid criticism, but then what options do we have? Think about any country in the world. The United States, when it was an emerging country, sent its elite to go study at Oxford, right? China today sent its elite to go study at Harvard. Harvard is the best school in the world. We have a student at Harvard, right? Oxford is one of the best schools in the world. We have students at Oxford. So at the end of the day, what is important is not to tie you can separate this discourse, this argument into two parts. The first is, should people be allowed to go and study abroad? Second is, how do you get them back, right? So I make no apologies for enabling people to be able to go and get the best education that there is. Because if you look in Cameroon, I'm going to indict the educational system in Cameroon, in spite of the fact that all of you, and you're the best, and you're very smart people, you come from Cameroon. I'm going to indict the educational system here and say that the educational leaders have completely failed us. They failed us, especially at the level of tertiary education. So many young people, so many of you leave high school with high hopes. You leave high school with the best course, and then you get into CUSE, you get into Polytech, and your futures just decay. You become despondent because the opportunities don't exist. So the tertiary educational system in Cameroon is a complete failure. We cannot train the best people to lead our countries at these very institutions. I do not say that everyone that has to build Cameroon tomorrow must go abroad to study. But what I do say is that we deserve a better education. We deserve a better educational system to train the future leaders of this country. The country that we have the country we come from has too many problems. We're not going to go into that because that would take us off a different path. We all agree that it has too many problems. Now, We need solutions to those problems. Where are the people that are going to solve these problems? Where are they going to be educated? I'm sorry, I do not really trust that the current generation of leaders we have now, who are failing at the jobs they're doing, they were trained at these very institutions. So we cannot be trying the same thing and expecting a different result. We need to find a different way to train our future leaders. So the first argument is, yes, you cannot send everyone abroad, but send those people abroad that have the leadership potential and have the courage to want to go abroad and study and then bring that education back. Now, the second indictment, the second criticism would be, okay, it's all good and fine. You can send everyone abroad. However, they're not going to come back. I'll get to your point. So you can send everyone abroad, but will they come back? Well, that's why at Open Dreams we have a different spirit. At Open Dreams, we could when we bring you guys in, we don't ask you for a dime. We help you guys get access to the best opportunities. We could sign a document and say, you know what, you have to pay back, you have to come to your country, and so on and so forth. But I don't believe in that. I believe that the value of the community that Open Dreams brings is to imbue, is to endow in each and every one of you a spirit of service. Our world is too small. You cannot tie people to one geographical place. No matter where you are, no matter where you find yourself, you can serve your country. Do you guys know where I'm calling from right now? I'm calling from Cameroon. I'm calling from Douala. I've spent the better part of 13 years abroad. I've been to more than 50 countries, lived on 5 continents or 4 continents around the world, right? But where am I right now? In Douala. So to anyone that says everything to bring, I say to them, oh, I'm the pioneer of Open Dreams, right? But where am I right now? I'm in Cameroon. And what am I doing? I've employed Cameroonians. I've brought in investments worth of billions of francs CFA back into Cameroon because I was able to go study abroad. Now, can anyone who's listening to me right now say, if I'd stayed in Cameroon and gone to school in Cameroon, I'd be able to go and raise millions of dollars in funding and be able to start the company I've started to employ the people I've employed? Is there anyone that can make that argument? No, I don't believe anyone can make that argument. However, because I was able to go out there and gain knowledge, gain education, get exposure, I've been able to bring that back. You know, we have Open Dreams, we have Kappa, a startup I'm working on. That's because I was able to leave this nest, this comfort zone, and go out and get the talent. And I believe each and every one of you, no one wants to be in India because they love India more than Cameroon. No one wants to be in Belgium because they love Belgium more than Cameroon. You guys go there because, yes, you're seeking opportunities for yourself, but you want to enrich yourself. You want to come back and bring that back and enrich your community. So we make no apologies for helping young people like yourselves go to get education at the finest and best institutions. You guys know what? When Christina Hans and I started Open Dreams, we could have thought, you know, maybe Cameroonians are not that hardworking, maybe they're not that smart, maybe we shouldn't strive for Harvard, maybe we should go for some sort of a low-hanging fruit, send you guys to community colleges so you can go struggle. We didn't do that. We believed that each and every one of you can become the best in your field, can compete at the very highest levels. And that's why we enable you guys strive to attain your fullest potential. You can be anything you want to be. You can be the next Mark Zuckerberg. You can be the next president of the country. You know, you don't limit your ambitions. Go out there and strive, and then bring it back to your community. I believe each and every one of you has the spirit to give back. And there are people on this call. There's Edwin on this call. There are so many of you guys that have started initiatives back in the country. Those people that are charged, you know, or accuse us and say we send you guys out because we're draining the country of brain. You guys come back every summer and do amazing projects. James has been a really great pillar of this. He's been abroad several times. He's got training and exposure. He's come back. So we don't accept that criticism, but it's a valid one to level, but we don't accept it.
Thank you for that elaborate answer. I tried to interrupt you many times, but I saw that the file was just too much and it was almost impossible for me just to even quench a little bit. And you've mentioned some very important points there that we cannot ignore at all. There's absolute necessity for, you know, human capital development and human potential exploration. And one thing that you equally have said yourself is that most of the institutions back in Cameroon, to some degree, have failed. And the leaders that they have raised right now are not, maybe in one way or the other, are not doing events of young students who are really coming up now and having so much energy and so much intellect. And one thing that I absolutely admire about the Open Dreams Network is that there's this aspect of imbibing the value of community development, the value of community engagement. At Open Dreams, during the summer academy, every single scholar is obliged to go into the community to engage in projects, something that actually makes Open Dreams stand out from other networks, such as this in Africa, because once a scholar is leaving from Cameroon, what they have at the back of their mind is that they are going to get empowered, they're going to get the potential, and then come back and address those problems that they had originally broke it down into two segments, going for studies and coming back. I would actually attest that most of the scholars that I know from Open Dreams have not only gone for studies and come back, but have actually come back and have invested in Cameroon or the other. There's Premier Dev, there's so many institutions and organizations that have started, that have been started by Open Dreams scholars and pre-scholars, and they're doing really amazing things. Open Dreams is one of the most engaged organizations in community development in Cameroon right now, as far as I can tell. So that's absolutely an amazing experience, and thank you for that response. So individual. But before we go into that, let's talk about your vision of Open Dreams. Where exactly do you see Open Dreams in 20 years, and what mark do you want Open Dreams to leave? What was the blueprint that you have in your head?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think James on the call, but I believe that the person that can better answer that question is James. I think when we started Open Dreams, we were very lucky to have someone like James, a leader like James. Not just a leader, right? Because it's more than leadership. It's someone that has a burning passion, a burning desire to really see people truly succeed. And I'm very lucky to find that person, James, because that's the spirit right. that I wanted to transmit to see young people around the world, to see young people, especially from Cameroon, reach into themselves, explore their potentials to the fullest, provide them that enabling platform so they can be the best they can be. James is a teacher, a classic teacher, a fundamental teacher, someone that wants to inspire his students to achieve, to succeed in classroom and beyond. So he's done that remarkably well over the past 10 years, and the whatever Open Dreams is today is in huge part thanks to his indefatigable spirit in ensuring, marshaling resources, bringing in collaborators, bringing in sister organizations, recruiting from schools, in ensuring that he's always there for our students, for their recommendations, for everything. So he's done a great job. So he is the single embodiment really of the vision that we have for Open Dreams, and I would almost say it's irreplaceable. Now, that being said, the vision that I have for Open Dreams, and I think Christina has a vision for Open Dreams as well. James has a vision for Open Dreams as well, and Hans, and I just want to shout out to Hans, shout out to Christina, two people who have no relation to Cameroon, but believe that helping a human being in Cuba, where Christina's parents come from, or in Sweden, where Hans's parents come from, is the same as helping human beings from Cameroon. And they've done this amazingly well, and I couldn't have asked for better partners. I just want to shout out to these amazing human beings without whom Open Dreams really wouldn't exist. So these people all should have a vision for Open Dreams. Now, so the vision we all have for Open Dreams, there is an overlap. Everyone has a different vision, but there's an overlap. I think overall, my fundamental goal is that when I look to the future of the country, 20 years down the road, I want to see people who are Open Dreams alumni leading in crafting education policy for the country, leading in finance in the country, leading in business, leading in government. I want to see all these people studying at these amazing institutions around the world. I want to see them come back. Because guess what? Even though I'm one of the biggest people that complain about the country, when I drive around the city of Douala and I see potholes and I see everything happening, I get very frustrated. But we're born in Cameroon, right? We cannot abandon ship. There's no other ship to run to. We cannot abandon ship. Our parents are here, our roots are here. You may feel like an outsider, but eventually you're part of the system. You're part of the system because at some point, you will be the leaders that others will look up to. The people that are 5 years old today, they will look up to you and say, what did you do in your time? And when they ask those questions, you better make sure that you're trying to fix things, because we cannot keep blaming people for indefinitely. It's true that like we can heap a lot of blame on the people that have spoiled the system, but then what are we doing? What will you do? So whatever you guys are doing right now, you're all training. You're training so that you can come back and impact your community. Right. So for me, when I think about the vision for Open Dreams, I think first about what will its alumni achieve 10, 20 years down the road. And what I hope is 10, 20 years down the road, when I turn on the TV, when I look to institutions, you guys are leading and you're doing a better job. And you're not only doing a better job, you're taking the country in a different direction. Because you all know, you all travel the world. You see how different things are in other parts of the world. We have great infrastructure, great education, and so on and so forth, technology, everything. So the blueprint for fixing a country, it all exists in other parts of the world. We all bring it together and fix this country. That is my vision and goal for Open Dreams. Now, in terms of the institution itself, Open Dreams as an institution, my hope is it will transform into some sort of a center for excellence. A center for excellence where we have people that come in, like the traditional program that we started with, kids that come in and get amazing scholarships around the world, number one. Number two, a place for professional excellence where professionals around Cameroon, whether it's doctors, teachers, etc., come for training as well. And a place that will provide some sort of a hub, like a beautiful tree, a bountiful tree in a community that provides a hub for people in the community to come and enrich themselves. Whether they're coming to learn technology, new skills, whether it's an incubation for startups. So Open Dreams is supposed to become a nexus for knowledge sharing, a place where people come to get empowered, a place where people come to seek hope and inspiration. It already is that for a lot of people. Now think about it. How many Open Dreams scholars study on full scholarships around the world today? I would say it's above 200, sometimes maybe it's up to 300. Now, each of these scholars come from a family, Cameroon. Each of them comes from a family in Cameroon. And if you take someone from each family in Cameroon and you send them to go to a great school and they're studying on a great scholarship, you provide hope to their parents, you provide hope to their community. So that already is what Open Dreams is. So I hope that in the next 20 years, we continue to be that. So my vision is in two parts. The alumni would be leading the country in a different direction, and the Open Dreams itself would be a center for excellence, where people in the community come for hope and inspiration, where we can incubate startups, where we can provide scholarships to people, where we can train the best and brightest of this country so they can go into every facet of the country and fix the broken country.
Amazing. So for all those who are joining right now, we are actually having the launch event for the Open Dream podcast. And I hope they've been listening and taking down. So everybody who has, a question to ask, the opportunity to raise their questions and to have their curiosity satisfied by our co-founder here, so Blaise. And you've actually answered that question very wonderfully. And thank you so much for throwing that light on it. And it's absolutely amazing to be part of this network and seeing the potential and the wonderful plan that we do have, ahead of us. So one thing that everyone who has gone through Open Dreams is going to attest to is the fact that Sir James is also to some degree personal mentor. He is a very inspirational personality, and he goes out of his way, most often to make sure that students, get access to opportunities. He sometimes forwards opportunities to us inbox, asking us if we applied, asking us if we have pillars of Open Dreams. And it's actually amazing to be able to work with him and to collaborate with the rest of the team to see that this is coming to life. Yeah, so with that aside, let's talk now about you getting into Harvard Business School. As of 2016, the acceptance rate for Harvard Business School was, just about 12%. So that's very low. And that means that only intellectually elitist individuals were able to get access to Harvard. And even because they see a lot of screening that goes on, there are a lot of elements that come into filtering who goes in and who goes out. And so it's a very tedious process. And so everybody who gets into the institution is, proven, tested, and has been able to demonstrate their worth. So what exactly do you think as an individual that made you stand out during a particular process? And what lessons do you think we can equally draw from that?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say there was anything special about me that going to Harvard, that able to get into Harvard. And I don't know to what extent it's helpful to you guys to even discuss my going into Harvard. But I just want to say to you, I'm just going to speak in general terms. So we spend I want to talk less about myself in essence, but I'm just going to say, whatever it is that you want to achieve, whatever it is that you want to do, go for it. Do not place a barrier. Do not say I'm not good enough. Now, it doesn't mean you're arrogant. It means that you strive. There are programs so I'm just going to give you guys an example. There are times when I was telling my young nephew when I'm mentoring the other day, he had an 18 on a test, and I said he could have done better because the 20 he could have had 20, but he missed it. Now he could have also had 16, and I'd be much happier. And why do I use that example? There are times when you strive your best, and you only get a C, and that's great enough. That's good enough. But then there are times when you don't work hard enough. You put in just some effort, and you get an A minus, and that's not good enough. So what I try to say to you guys is, the moral of the story here is, don't ever write yourself off and say, I'm a black man, I'm a woman, I'm disabled, I don't speak well. Don't ever say I don't come from money, I don't have the right accent, I don't come from the right country, I don't have the right clothes. Don't. Whatever is in your head, no one can take away from you. The fight you have in you, no one can take away from you. No one can ever take that away from you. People can mock you in school for not having the right accent and all that, but all of that doesn't impact how strongly you can fight. When I got to Washington and Lee, I was this kid from Africa. I was like Washington and Lee, like kids that go there from like very wealthy schools, like sort of very wealthy families. And I was this kid that people would mock at, like, oh, the kid from Africa, no one cares. But then Goldman Sachs only takes one person from the school a year. And by my 4th year, I was that one person. Now, but if I let all those things that those people said to me, if it got to me, I never would be that one person. So the moral of the story here is, if you want to go to Harvard Business School, you work hard for it, you will. If you want to go to Oxford, you will. Like, so that's literally the takeaway here. And the application process itself, all of that is just process. Now, it does not mean you won't fail. Like the path to success, all of you know, every one of you know. There are so many of you that applied 1, 2, 3, 4 times before got accepted. The path to success is not straight. If you think it's straight, you're setting yourself up for failure. Path to success is not straight. But when you work hard, that's my prayer. I think that's a prayer that the kind of prayer I believe in. I don't believe that I can sit here and then not work hard. And then on the day of the exam, I go and manipulate God's conscience and invoke his spirit to help me to pass and be better than other people. I don't believe in that. I believe that the prayer starts when you start working hard. That's how God answers prayers. Because think about it. If you don't work hard and then you rely on prayer on some sort of superstition, then you are literally asking God to cheat on your behalf. Why is it that other people would go pray and God would favor them and not those people that have been working hard? So I believe that that's prayer. Prayer is literally you putting in the legwork, right? Working hard, believing in yourself. I don't think about competition. I hardly ever think about my competition. I just think about where did I start and where can I be? So that really is my philosophy. And so when I've had self-doubts, right? I still do have self-doubt. I'm working on a startup. I still don't know if it's going to be successful someday. I don't know if we're going to be a unicorn someday. We all have self-doubt. But in that process, think about where is it you come from? What is it you're trying to achieve? And can you bring your intellect to bear? Can you bring the resources you have to bear? Can you bring your ingenuity to bear? Can you use your talent, your resources, your network to make sure you work hard and strive to succeed? So that's why any one of you here can get accepted to Harvard or Stanford or Yale, whatever. You all have the opportunity, you all have the platform, you all have the access. Just work hard because you have the intellect, you can do it as well. So that was sort of my inspiration, right? Because I came from think about it. Well, I came from Bamenda, then I was at Washington and Lee, I worked at Goldman. So what really motivated me? What made me believe that I could actually belong in this group as well? Because we all sometimes feel like imposters. When you're in these environments, you're like, hey, maybe I don't belong here. Maybe it's only the sons of the doctors, the lawyers from Upper West Side in New York that belong here. It's the sons of the wealth that belong here. You feel like an imposter. So when I was in China studying for the Schwarzman Scholars Program, and there's one of you there right now, I saw all these kids from Harvard and Yale and MIT and all that. I'm like, oh, but these guys, like they went to all these Ivy League schools and were in class and, they're not that smarter than me. And like, okay, I mean, you know what? I'm going to apply. I'm going to be one of these kids that apply to HBS. And that year when we applied, there were only 2 of us that got accepted into HBS. And these were already kids that came from elite, wealthy backgrounds in the US. So don't write yourself off. No one in the world should believe in yourself more than you. And the only person that stands between you and whatever you want to achieve is you. There is no one that can come and say, I put a barrier before you and I stop you from progressing today. No one. The only person that sees a stumbling block in front of you is you. Right? So remove that stumbling block and just work hard and strive and succeed and leverage the people around you. Use relationships well. Be polite to people. Be respectful of their time when they give you their time. Send emails to follow up if they forget. People don't receive your emails and say, oh, I hate this guy, I'm not going to respond to him. No, they're just busy and they forget. Send follow-up emails, remind them gently, leverage your relationships, and then keep informed. Keep informed. Like literally, I cannot tell you guys how much being informed about anything and everything, right? I take every subject to be my domain. Like I'm not an expert on anything, but I make sure that whether I'm a scientist or an engineer or a politician, there is some conversation I can have, even if it's superficial. So get informed about what's happening in the world around you, whether it's in your part of the country, in other parts of the country. Read the news, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, The Economist, tech reviews, newsletters. Keep informed. That is how you stay ahead of the game.
Thank you for that motivational segment. I don't think there could have been a better response to that question. You're absolutely right when you say that most of the times the barriers that actually exist are the ones that we set for ourselves. There's this common code that says that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So when you're a fighter, when you are constantly go for it, there's a higher chance that you're going to get it. And so thank you again for really motivating us with that. Let's go a bit to talk about Kappa Pay, which is a startup that you earlier mentioned that you're working on. So the basic premise of Kappa Pay out of Africa. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, basically Kappa Pay is something I'm working on. My background's in finance, as some of you know, in trading and in private equity. But when I was at HPS, I think one of the good things they do there is to enable you to be very reflective and introspective and ask yourself, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve in life? Like, what would make you happy? What would make you satisfied? What is your purpose? Is it money you're looking for? Or do you want to create impact and change? No. So when you're there, you go through this very introspective exercise and you think about yourself like, when I'm at 70 years old or at 80 years old and you look back on your life, what do you wish you would have done? No. So when you think about things like that, when you take a step back, think about some of these bigger questions in life, and your choices begin to narrow to those things that fundamentally matter to you. And people come to this question at different stages in life. And I'm going to say for this group, most of you scholars, it might be a question where it's still a bit not premature for you to begin to answer for yourself, because you need to sort of build skills, right? I didn't just come to start Kappa out of, just right out of college. Even though you can do that if you have the means, there are a lot of young people that have dropped out of college to start companies, but you sort of need to build skills. For those of us that come from humble backgrounds, you want to sort of prove yourself somewhere else. Cut your teeth, prove yourself somewhere else, get some sort of financial stability. People do that through, you go to college, you graduate, you work for a tech company, you work for consulting, McKinsey, one of the big four, you work in accounting firms, you work in energy, you work on Wall Street, etc. So in those when you do that, you sort of get the experience and you get some savings and so on and so forth. And then beyond that, you might have the luxury or the liberty to ask yourself, now, I didn't like my job too much, but I had to do it because I had to put food on the table. Now, what do I really want to do? What do I want to achieve?
Now you're here, right, to draw this wall. So the wall starts from this wall, right, to out there. So it's starting from this wall to out there. And the distance from here, and the distance of the wall from this wall to this wall is what? 350, right?
Please meet yourselves.
Okay, cool. So like I was saying, so you sort of go through that exercise. So the first thing is, like it's just a formula that many people have tried and tested. You get out of college, you get a job, you work for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you get good experience, then you ask yourself, maybe I need to double down in my industry if you're doing quite well, or you might say, okay, I want to go to business school, or I want to go do some other thing. I want to go back to school. I want to reinvent myself. You can reinvent yourself and then change industries. And at that point, you think about what do you want to achieve in life. So I think it was then that I started thinking, what do I want to do? You can go back to Wall Street, earning good money and all that, but then does that give you satisfaction? When you wake up in the morning, does that motivate you? Does it give you purpose and meaning? And this is when we come back, we go back to like when we grew up, what motivated us, what do we want to achieve, what impact do we want to create and all that. So that was the thinking for me. And that's how the idea of Kappa came about. I wanted to do something, first of all, do something for myself, do something that inspires me every day, and do something back on the continent because the opportunities are here. It's true that you're also motivated by the upside, the potential upside. And fintech, like you guys know, like we live in a very fantastic time in history, in the history of the human race. We have access to all kinds of, everyone has a phone, iPhones and all whatnot. And when people went to the moon, people didn't have computers that were this powerful back in the 60s. So you live at a time, just remind every one of you, you live in a very unique moment in history. You have access to the most powerful tools you can get. You have access, think about it. When we were in high school, we'd go to library, like people that grew up in Bamenda, we go to the Bamenda Council Library and we get books there. But you really didn't have access to internet. But today you can go online and have access to more information that ever existed to any other human being in history before this time. Think about it. It's fascinating. The sheer scale of the information you have in your hands. So you can literally do anything. So it's the moment and sometimes it can be dizzying with all this information. So you ask yourself, what do you want to achieve? And how do you leverage your skills, your resources, all the educational knowledge you've built to be able to build something and achieve something. So that was the inspiration for me. And I thought, what do I do next? I could have gone into venture capital, gone into private equity, go back to Wall Street and all that. But I thought, Kappa is it. Kappa is the thing I want to do next. And this was like a fintech company, building a fintech company. And I think the rest is history. You guys know I raised some funding and we're building it now. And then we'll be launching sometime in the future. So that was the inspiration for Kappa. And I just want to say to each and every one of you, tomorrow, if you want to start a company, I mean, my principle, my philosophy is, if I've gone ahead and done something, and if there's someone behind me that wants to do it, then I want to show them how to do it, right? If I go to school in the US, I want to show other young people how to do the same thing. If I go to Wall Street, I want to mentor young people to go to Wall Street. There are a lot of people on Wall Street today that and I've helped work on Wall Street. If I go to Schwarzman, he'll show people how to go to Schwarzman. If you go to Harvard Business School, show people how to go to Harvard Business School. It's simple. Is that simple? If you whatever you achieve and succeed, you do and succeed, show them how to do it as well. And they'll do it. They might do it better, they might do it worse, but just show them how to do it. It doesn't subtract from you. I swear to God, Open Dreams is a wonderful blessing in our lives. Like I know Christina is excited. When we see you guys, when we see you all succeed, it brings immeasurable pride. It brings immeasurable joy to see that you guys go out there and work so hard and become what you want to become. So you do the same for others. So now that I've started fintech, I have access to investors and all that. Tomorrow, if any one of you wants to start a company, I wouldn't say, oh, I have money to give you to start a company, but I'll say, here's what I did. Here's how I talked to investors. Here's how I put together my pitch deck. Here's how I recruited people. Here's how what I did to get engineers and so on and so forth. So that's the story of Kappa, and we're very, very excited about what we're building, and we hope that you guys get to use Kappa when we launch.
Yeah, sure. I like the angle from which you're answering most of these questions. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for these responses. You're answering us, you're really answering, but you're actually answering the question. And those who are listening very attentively are going to draw some very key gems from what you said about us living in a very interesting time with how far technology has come, the access of information. If you click on a few buttons, you can basically get a course that you can study for free, expand your skill set, expand your knowledge, expand your network, gain access to information, to resources, tools, mentors, and all of that. So yeah, we are living in an interesting period of history. And I wanted to ask you a question about how you were able to raise about 2.1 segment, or you could throw a bit some light on that in case you want to.
Sorry,
I want to move forward to talking about creating every person to ask themselves the question of.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? All right, great. So yeah, you want to move on, like I said, to talking about creating impact. And you mentioned that it is necessary for everybody to ask themselves at some point in their lives what it is that they want to actually, what change they want to bring, what impact they want to create, what positive value they want to leave back, what legacy they actually want to build. And for you, to some degree, Kappa was, really that way of creating positive impact, using technology, using fintech and all of that. So the average African actually lives on less than $5 a day. And the mission statement in some way of Kappa is, facilitating the movement of money from Black-owned businesses in the US to Africa and back. So of what relevance or of what impact is that particular mission of Kappa to the average African who lives on less than $5 daily?
Yeah, Titus, it seems like you've done a lot more homework than I expected. You're asking the good questions. So basically, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I'm building Kappa, number one, to create an impact. I'm also building Kappa to create value, tremendous value. I believe that there is a lot of potential on the African continent. If you think about the way the economy, the world works, right? We trade, like we have economies, we trade. No human beings about it from first principles. For me to exist and live a fulfilled life, I need to interchange. I need to exchange with someone. I need to give them bread and they'll give me sugar, and so on and so forth. So we have an economy that exists. We need to trade. And when you trade, you're exchanging value. And the most common way to exchange value today, or with the system that we invented to exchange value, is money. And now that's transitioned, and that was local before, right? People did not used to leave their villages before. You use money you use money locally. But today, I want to exchange value not just with Thaddeus that lives next to me. I want to exchange value with Christina that lives all the way in California. How do I do that? I use technology to exchange value. And our thesis at Kappa, we fundamentally believe that today, there is still a lot of challenges, and I'm sure most of you would attest, exchanging value, storing and exchanging value. If I wanted to send money to Joy right now in India, what do? Well, I might go to Western Union, but that's inconvenient. If I wanted to text Joy a message right now, I'll go to WhatsApp and send her a message. And it's great. So if we can exchange information so easily, why not value as well? So that's our thesis. So at Kappa, our thesis is we want to make it as easy to exchange value as we exchange information today. That's our thesis at Kappa. So how does that then translate to your question? Like, how does it help people in Africa to live better lives? How does it help them? People live on less than $5 a day and so on and so forth. So fundamentally, Kappa, we have a fiduciary duty to our investors. So the first people we're responsible to is investors, but we also want to create impact. We believe that if we build the product that we want to build, it will enable people to be able to easily exchange value. And when you can easily exchange value, then there is a lot of benefit that accrues, right? Because people can sell their goods faster, get money faster, and so on and so forth. Now think about Cameroon. What do we produce? What do we manufacture? If you look around you, the shirt you have, the mic you have, the chair you have, the computer you have, etc., the bulbs, none of it was manufactured in Cameroon, or very little of it. So we import everything. Now, when we import everything, we have to pay money out. Money has to go out. How do we pay that money? If you go to banks, it's very difficult. I mean, in the industry, it's very difficult to do that. If you want to send money right now to pay for school fees abroad, it's quite challenging to do that. So Kappa would enable people to be able to easily do that. Now, you could ask me another question. Well, maybe you should be building a business that will enable Cameroonians to produce more locally and lead to import substitution so we can export more, so on and so forth. Well, but the structure of the African economy is what it is. Africa is one of the last parts of the world where you have the least industrialization. Now, maybe we shouldn't go into development economics, but most countries in the world, the way they developed was by exporting their way to growth. The US developed because they industrialized and they exported a lot to other parts of the world. Britain did the same thing. They started exporting textile. Asia, the same thing. Manufacturing is the way you grow, right? Like the main components. If you look at the demand component of GDP, you look at consumption, you look at export and imports, you look at government's expenditure, and you look at investments. For many countries that are starting out from a low base, the most important way is to manufacture and export. So Asia has done that. Other parts of the world have done that. Africa, we're expecting, hoping that Africa would do that as well. But I think many of us, because we're very fragmented, you cannot look at Africa as a whole. But you look at different parts of Africa, some people are doing a much better job. Other people are thinking, well, we might not go through the manufacturing phase. We might skip straight and go into services. In Kenya, for example, there's a lot of tech and so on and so forth. But in the history of development, economic growth is synonymous with industrialization, with manufacturing and exporting your way. But unfortunately for us, we import a lot of things. We have cheap labor, right? People like Apple, etc. All those people, they should be looking to build assembly lines here. They should be looking to employ a lot of Africans with cheap labor. But our leaders don't do a good job, or they don't understand what the hell is going on, or they don't do a good job trying to enable Cameroon, for instance, to become a manufacturing hub, so we can export our way to growth. Now we import a lot of things that we should not be importing. When we import these things, we have to make payments. So for Kappa, what we want to do is to facilitate payments. Now, Kappa is different from other fintechs in the sense that many fintechs only help you to move money either in or out. Like in the US, if you look at competitors from PayPal to Wave to Sunwave and all those companies, they help you to move money into the country. For Kappa, you can use Kappa if you're in the US or in Europe to send money back as well. But also you can use Kappa if you are in Cameroon. We're bidding with the Cameroonian in mind, right? To send money back abroad, to send money to make payments for Netflix or PayPal and so on and so forth. So it's some sort of a bi-directional thing. And it's both for businesses and also for individuals. So that's sort of what the philosophy is. I took a tangent there to talk a bit about development economics and so on and so forth. But just to take a step back and say, this is how economics works. This is how Kappa thinks about the flow of goods and services around the world, and this is where we want to come in.
Thank you for that detour into global economics and business. And I think that was very relevant to actually answer that question. So for those who are interested in business, interested in economics, interested in opportunities to get to Blaise. He's a very busy person. But if you do have the opportunity someday to get to him and just ask 1 or 2 questions, I'm sure you're going to get a lot from that. Yeah, we're going to go. It's talking about the future of Kappa. I think you've really laid that down very good. And yeah, we are moving towards the end of our interview. So one thing that we've got to open this podcast is a tradition that we actually maintained over 5 episodes. So right now is that we give the guests the opportunity to give a few words of encouragement or a few words of counsel to the audience. So if you were to, in a few lines, because we're moving to the end, I'm going to take about 4 questions before we eventually close out. Yeah, give us a few words of counsel, just in a few lines. Yeah. General counsel.
Sure. So the advice, the one advice I want to tell people is, don't be too hard on yourselves. Today, sometimes we're just too hard on ourselves. I'm not doing enough. I'm not striving enough. My friends are successful. Everyone's got a scholarship. Everyone's got a job. Everyone's got accepted to amazing programs. People are doing fine. People are traveling. They're on social media. They have amazing lives. I'm the worst. Don't. Tune it out. Like, seriously, what you see on social media is so different from what's happening internally. Do not let your internal equilibrium, right, be set by external forces. Try as much as you can to have that internal peace, that your internal equilibrium should come from within, right? It should not be perturbed by external forces. Those external forces, all the information that come in from social media you're consuming and all that, it's all noise. It's all noise. When people succeed, they don't go out there and keep scrolling on social media and thinking, oh my God, all of this is happening. No, they sit down and work hard and tune out the noise. And then once they work hard, then they come out and succeed, and then they can write about it. Don't compare. Like, yeah, you're right, Krishna. Compare your despair. Don't. I can tell you guys to work hard and all that. You're already doing that. But I think what's very pernicious today is people try to measure up themselves to their friends and so on and so forth. Don't do that. Just find your own path and stick to your path. And it's okay for other people to travel and enjoy themselves in their lives. It doesn't concern you too much. Someday you will get there. Look, I'm here right now. My friends that graduated with me from HBS, they're in London, they're in New York, they're in San Francisco. They party, they travel, they do fun stuff. I see it too. Sometimes I feel FOMO. I feel like I'm missing out as well. But no, just focus on yourself. Focus on building yourself. Read a book, read a great article. Like, there are so many beautiful articles. I used to post a lot about, articles. I don't do that anymore today, but there's so many beautiful things out there to read, to enjoy, to develop yourself, to grow your mind. That's the advice I want to give you. Because I could say to you that, work hard and go get better scholarships. You all are already doing that. So mental health is very important. Don't neglect mental health. Mental health is exacerbated, right? The mental health problem is exacerbated by the stuff we see and consume around us. But consume the good things. Consume the good things. Stay true to yourself. Stay true to your values. Don't let the social media feed perturb you. Don't let all those things that people have better lives and all that. No, you have a great life. If you can put food on the table and then get a good book to read and pursue your dreams, you're doing great.
Kyogo. So while you're talking, I just remembered that I downloaded a poem here that you wrote in 2017. You uploaded on your LinkedIn, and while you were speaking, I just reflected to the poem, and I'm just going to read a few some parts of it right now. The title is "Summon Yourself." It says, "As you head out each morning, prepare to seize the day. Hold your head up high. Take pride in your achievements. As you set mistakes, we all make them. Instead, profit from each new day to write your story anew. For each new dawn brings another chance to start over. And when you find yourself in one of life inevitable valleys, solve to train your sights to the mountain peak ahead. Find your internal equilibrium, draw from the store of strength within. Assuredly, the challenges you face today pave the road to tomorrow's achievements, and whatever your ambitions, whatever your expectations, do not let society set them for you. That is a certain recipe for failure. Lastly, though others may say no, especially when they say you can't, remember you have the agency to summon your best self and say yes, and that is all you need to conquer. Thank you so much, Sir Blaise. Amazing piece and wonderful piece. So we have actually come to the end of the interview. It took at least 3 times longer than we originally anticipated, and now we are going to give members of the audience the opportunity to ask their questions. So if you do have a question, I think I'm going to take about 4. If you do have a question, just unmute yourself and direct your question to Sir Blaise.
Okay, before the listeners come on in asking their questions, we have a question in the chat from Jules. And his question goes as such. It says, Sir Blaise, do you have any intention of targeting French Cameroon? Is Open Dreams having any intention of targeting French Cameroon?
Yeah, great question. So I think again, James is better placed, but I believe that we frankly don't discriminate. We try to target students from all parts of the country, whether they're French speaking or English speaking, and we don't discriminate by language. It is true that there are more opportunities in the Anglophone world, right? Because many of the scholarships are like the English is an international language. That is true, but no matter where you come from, whether you are in a high school that uses French or in a high school that uses English, if you can demonstrate and work hard, you get these opportunities. Actually, we're doing, I think there was a time when I think James was doing a concerted effort to go out and actually particularly find students from Francophone schools and Francophone section to enable them to get scholarships as well. It just happens to be the nature of scholarships that most of these programs are in English and so on and so forth. But I know that there are many of you on this call that are, from either from French-speaking schools or from French, from Francophone backgrounds. But we don't discriminate whatsoever. We get the best and the brightest from everywhere.
Okay, Sir Blaise, thank you for that wonderful response.
Right, so I just got some information from Sir James. Now we're going to see just 2 more questions and close out as the session with the ladies comes up in a few hours. Go ahead, Joy.
Well, if anyone else has a question, they can just raise their hands and we see how to answer the questions. And just to add, Kevin, we have Science Poll. It actually takes French-speaking Cameroonians on scholarship. And I believe Open Dreams has been able to expand into the French-speaking Cameroon of recent. I think it's almost a year now we have been targeting the French-speaking Cameroonians because there are opportunities for them as well. There are also Mastercard Foundation scholarships that do cover the French-speaking Cameroon.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, we have a question from Delphine. She says, is there any background check to really ascertain for low-income achievers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I believe when we started, the assumption was that many of the people we targeted, we already, in Cameroon, it's not too difficult to ascertain whether someone is from a low-income background. We can tell sometimes from the high schools they went to, we meet their parents and so on and so forth. So I think that that's not the most stringent of our screening criterion. We mostly look at, how hardworking and how smart they are, whether they've demonstrated the aptitude to become Open Dreams members. For now, we believe that most of the people that come through Open Dreams meet our criterion for a low-income achiever, basically. Unless they're sons and daughters of millionaires here and billionaires that we've missed, we have these Open Dreams and help out the others.
Thank you, Sir Blaise, for that response.
Yeah, Gilbert has a question. Yeah.
Hi, Blaise. Thanks so much for the amazing talk. Listening to you, it's always like getting back to the fuel station to refuel each time we listen to you. I must remark with this, before I come to my question, to remark this, this quote. Sorry. Miles Monroe says, success without a successor is failure. And I must say, Open Dreams is raising a giant of scholars who are hungry for change. If you look across, there are many initiatives that are growing from within the scholars. And my question to you, Blaise, and to the rest of the co-founders, what mechanism are we putting in place to see that we have this broad range of initiatives by the people you are raising across the continent to melt down as subsidiaries of Open Dreams? We want to see an Open Dreams with a trunk, with branches, with leaves, and with the roots deep. What mechanisms do we have in place? Thank you.
Gilbert, that's a great question. Thanks for your question, right? We want to see that whatever modest successes we've achieved so far can be replicated, not just, before even going to other parts of the continent, in other parts of the country. We want to make sure that Open Dream reaches out and into other communities as well. There are a lot of other communities where people can benefit a lot from the model that we've created at Open Dreams. And what are we doing? What are people doing? Or what are we doing to ensure that the fruits and the successes and all that can be spread? We can spread our tentacles to ensure that we reach into even wider communities in Cameroon and beyond. I know that as we come up to our 10th anniversary, there are some ideas that are being put forward. I saw something came from James the other day about what exactly we should be doing to make sure that we can replicate the successes from Open Dreams. When we started Open Dreams, really, one of the things we really thought about intently from the start was to make sure that the model could be easily scalable. And easily scalable means we can quickly and easily set up new centers and then translate that model, because it's not a capital intensive thing. The Open Dreams is its people. It's like Open Dreams is you guys. You are Open Dreams. So if we use that as a model, as a basis, then wherever each and every one of you go, it's a potential new Open Dreams, right? You're spreading these amazing seeds into the wind, and then wherever you land, it's a new Open Dreams that germinates, in a sense. Because I know that each and every one of you, in one way or the other, you're mentoring people, you're helping people. People look up to you, like I said earlier, as success stories, and you're helping them. And when you do that, you already are proliferating Open Dreams. That's what you're doing. So I believe that we're going to have a more structured process, especially in the years ahead, to make sure that Open Dreams as it exists today can exist in other countries as well. And that the most important thing, actually, the strongest thing, is this network alumni, the network, the community. It's so powerful. Why do you guys think that schools in the US, like MIT, Harvard, all those schools are very powerful? Because when you graduate into the community, they welcome you. When there are jobs, they post it, they send it to you guys. When my friends are working at companies, when job opportunities come up, they first share it with the people in the network, in the alumni community. That is what makes these clubs very powerful. And that's what you guys should be doing, because you're all alumni of Open Dreams. It means you can help each other, you can impact each other, and so on and so forth. That's the most important thing. That's the strongest thing to come out of this. But definitely in the years ahead, especially as we find a way to make Open Dreams more sustainable and begin to apply for grants and get more resources, we're going to be very intentional about making sure that we set up new structures and so on and so forth to make sure that we're really maximizing and benefiting from the amazing fruit or amazing benefit that is Open Dreams.
Thank you very much for responding this on this. Unfortunately, we cannot take all questions as we have time constraints at us right now. I equally recorded an episode, so we give those available on Spotify right now. So you can Spotify and Open Dreams podcast, you're easily able to find us. So it was actually amazing having on this particular meeting. So Blaise, thank you so much for taking your time, your energy, and yeah, taking all our questions and entertaining our curiosities. It was absolutely amazing to have you. So thank you also, listeners and audience who signed into today's session. It was absolutely amazing to have you here. You can find us on our social media pages, Open Dreams, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well. And you can find Open Dreams podcast fully on RSS.
Awesome.
And
Thank
in the
you,
future, we're going
guys.
to be releasing more interesting episodes with more mind-boggling conversations from individuals who are, spearheading change in different areas and in different individuals of the Open Dreams network. Thank you so much, Blaise. So Blaise, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Titus. Thank you, Joy. Thank you to everyone for joining. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
I'm sorry. Let me just jump in for one thing, please. I'm so sorry for coming in, but you have to cut this off, right, Titus? We are recording this. You cut this off. Yeah. So Blaise, your story again is so impressive. In fact, Nikki just said it. That listening to you is really refreshing, and that's a whole